Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 66, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I'm your host, VyseTheBold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And your friendly neighborhood Dracologist.
Whoa.
Oh, man. I didn't know we had more than one.
It's a dying type of job, you know.
Are you in... is your primary base of operations in Queens, New York?
Yeah, I was gonna say New York City or something.
No, sadly not.
That's
not much dragons there, you know.
You just study them, right?
No, actually, I'm a medical support.
Oh, okay. Just in case Dragon Heart
Dragon Heart. Of all the dragon movies you could have brought up. Freaking Dragon Heart.
It was awesome. It had Sean Connery.
Yes,
I saw it in theaters.
I was pretty disappointed by that movie.
Why?
I didn't... Maybe I didn't get it when I was a kid. Maybe it's better upon successive viewings, because now I see it as viewed pretty favorably, but back then it was kind of lampooned.
It was well animated. Well, like it had.
It was.
It has a nice comment toward it.
It had a pretty cool concept, like a human and a dragon like banding together to fleece like entire villages.
Yeah,
which is pretty neat. That's actually kind of cool, a cool con game that I didn't expect.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
But anyway, without further ado, we will move on to Lotus's segment here.
Yeah, I don't have too terribly much to bring up this time. The first is that Fatal Frame Maiden of Black Water is going to be uploaded really soon. In fact, by the time you hear this, which will be on a Tuesday, I think the first or second installment will have gone up for patrons, and then about a week later, that stuff will start hitting the general public. So get hyped for the latest Fatal Frame game. I'm rather excited to see its reception. It was definitely interesting to play, so I imagine it would be interesting to watch as well. This is one of those things where, you know, not everybody can necessarily say, like, oh, well, I can get it for myself, because it's on the most well-sold console in history, the PS2, or it's readily available on PS3. Like, the Wii U was not the most successful console, so not everybody bought it. So they didn't get to play that game.
You know what I find kind of interesting is that you have a series that was birthed on like the most popular console at the time, which was the PS2.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, there were updates on the original Xbox.
Yeah.
Which was kind of probably because Tecmo had a good relationship with Microsoft at the time, because of the Ninja Gaiden games and the Dead or Alive games selling well. But Then they put it on the Wii, which I guess makes sense because the Wii was popular. It was probably the most popular system at the time too. Because the Wii was an incredibly well-selling.
Yeah, the
system,
Wii
probably
really
the best
sold
of
well.
all time.
Well, if I may, it fell to those people who are like, how to
non-gamers.
Say this? Yeah, well, casual. The filthy casual scum.
Yeah, it was definitely a console that appealed to like the vast majority of people, and not just like people that played video games. It was something that like lots of people liked, right? And at the time also it was the first kind of Roku machine, right? It was one of the very first machines that was capable of playing Netflix on a television easily. So like a lot of people liked it because of that.
Most of the games was just wave your arms around and hope the best that the program is designed to receive your info.
Well, for third-party games, like the people who were really kind of made more proper motion control games.
The Nintendo games were usually pretty good about it.
Third-party games. I think the best was Red Steel 2.
Red Steel 2 is quite good. I actually need to get through that. I need to go back and play that. But the first couple segments I played, and it was a lot of fun. I also I also want to mention, give a little bit of a shout out to there was an article on Lotus. You'll find this interesting. There was an article on Retronauts written by Jeremy Parrish, who spotlight lit interesting, maybe not the best, but interesting WiiWare games, because WiiWare service is going to be discontinued after March this year. Well, you can't buy any more games after that, and you can only download games until 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But he spotlit Stone Keep 2.
Yeah, the best game ever made.
Like, this is very few people downloaded this, and if they did, they hated themselves. It's like, yo.
That's exactly the case for you, yeah. The only way you would ever download Stone Keep 2 is if you knew what the hell Stone Keep was, and if you did that, and you downloaded Stone Keep 2, then you're probably still kicking yourself for like the $10 you threw away.
I was glad he didn't like mention it as some kind of like little known treasure or hidden
yeah, no,
gem
it's a
or
piece of
something.
shit.
It's a piece of shit.
And I really want to buy it and download it to show it off, because that game is really, like, what were they thinking?
I'm glad I have it.
Exactly.
Because like
you can play as a Sharga. How can you go wrong?
It's an obscure sequel, and I want, like, if I want to show a really shit game to somebody, this is what I'm going to show them.
do the same motion over and over again. Eventually, it'll count as having done correctly.
What was that, Dracologist?
Next to Right to Hell, the Retribution.
Yeah.
It's not a hilarious glitch fest. It's just bad.
Unplayable.
Yeah,
unplayable.
like Ride to Hell, I was like, I gotta see where this goes. But like Stone Keep, play level 1, and as far as I know, you get the idea.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I think I have. Is it like Occult Rays recently came out on Steam, and I think I talked about evil developers with the Vyse, and I just watched this video. Like my boss, not my boss, but like my mate who makes this, like runs this sort of this game. How to tell it? Like we watch what's the crap and what's the good in Steam games, and
Sure.
this game was made with like this 3D RPG maker like building tool. Like you can download this and make your own little games with it. And
so it's definitely like generic looking.
yeah,
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, it was beyond generic. Like it was absolutely like we used the most basic assets we can was available, and my friend couldn't get through like the first level, the first fight, not even the second. And what do you know? DLC. You can buy a character that is actually more powerful and actually can get through the first two fights.
Well,
Wow.
Dracologist, I'll say this about Stone Keep: when you navigate the kind of maze-like floor, when you get a map and everything, but when you navigate it and you get the key to unlock the door that takes you to the next floor, it's kind of like Grimrock that way, where like the stairs is the end of the level. But here, there's no stairs. You just like open a door and you're in just a room. Like it might just be a closet, and there's a little piece of paper on the ground. When you pick it up, it's basically like, yep, you beat the floor, and then you're just taken to the next floor, and you're like, what? Like the item is the exit.
What I was getting at here was that I think it's kind of weird that, like, I guess now Nintendo and Tecmo have a pretty close relationship. They, with the number of projects that they've done, like, like Zelda Warriors, like that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
Hyrule Warriors, yeah.
Hyrule Warriors. But, like, why did they transition from, like, popular systems to, like, the Wii U, to publish their game? You know what I mean? Like, it seems so weird. I guess maybe
I have no idea. I guess they just assumed the Wii U would be like not a failure.
Yeah.
Because the 3DS was killing it, and then like the Wii U, like just nobody knew how to make games for it. So like,
I wonder if they make a 6th one, it'll be on the Switch.
I wonder if
The
they'll port
Switch
the
is
5th one to
really
the
popular.
Switch.
Yeah, that would be even better.
Wii U, also known as the Bayonetta 2 machine.
The what machine?
Bayonetta 2.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the system has a lot of great exclusives. It just doesn't,
Devil's Third.
Yeah, more like Devil's Turd. Am I right? But yeah, all the games came out very infrequently. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
If I may say that, the fact that the Wii U had that special function that you could look like see a screen in the screen, with like you could watch the TV screen with your little controller screen, and it would show up stuff. And that's a potential wasted, because there could have been like Maiden of Blackwater probably used it like as a camera, right? Like you can see the ghost through it.
Yes.
And
I'm just kind of upset that like more DS games weren't ported to it, because there are a lot of DS games
dual
that
screens.
I would have loved to have been played on the TV. Like Contra 4. I would have the Castlevania games on the DS. Could have. I mean, they put all the GBA ones on the Wii U, but like they didn't put any of the DS ones, and the DS ones are like the best Castlevania games there are. Like, other than maybe Symphony of the Night, you know, like the GBA ones are great, but like the DS ones are even better. And it's a shame that they didn't get like television ports.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would like to. I mean, this isn't exactly WiiWare. This is still Wii U-ware, but I still would like to pick up the DS Zelda games before, or while I had the chance, I guess.
Yeah. They're apparently the Spirit Tracks is like way better.
I mean, whatever. I still want to have them.
Yeah. I bought them, and I also bought Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, which Partners in Time is like one of my favorite games. I love that game. It's really good. So that's definitely a good buy on there.
Heard the Mario RPGs are generally more better than the Mario platform games.
I mean, I've only played the first one, but it was freaking brilliant.
I mean, the recent Mario and Luigi ones are kind of have a mixed reception for one reason or another, like Dream Team and the Paper Jam.
I think the Paper Mario games are the best.
Those games have been getting kind of a mixed reception too, like ever since Sticker Star Saga.
Yeah, I heard Sticker Star was it, but the 1,000-Year Door, like, everybody loves.
Yeah, the first two games everybody loves, but like then the games after that have always been kind of experimental and haven't always gone like well. There's Super Paper Mario was not received well. It probably sold well, but it didn't. It wasn't well received, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I was not a huge fan of it.
Well, I mean, anyway, coming back to this, like, just Fatal Frame Let's Play shout out, that was really all that was. The only other thing I could talk about that's, you know, gaming related and not the, you know, just my job would be, I had a stream of Streets of Rage 2, and that game is a freaking treasure. So it was...
I love that game.
Yeah, it was super fun playing through that. I played as Axel because I always love playing as Axel in Streets of Rage 2. For whatever reason, I stuck with Blaze on Streets of Rage 1, Axel Streets of Rage 2. I've tried.
I like playing as Adam in 1.
Adam is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And then you can never play him again, like ever. It's just like,
what?
what?
Streets of Rage has the Taggart character in it, right?
Which one?
The wrestling major.
Well, there's a wrestler in Streets of Rage 2, but Mike Hagar was from Final Fight.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, speaking of which, though, because Mr. Ryu grew up with Final Fight. You know, I grew up with Streets of Rage, and we had this, like, back and forth on which series was better, even though he'd only played Streets of Rage 1, and I played Final Fight for, like, a little bit in college on an emulator, so I didn't really get the experience. So
the better series is Streets of Rage. But
well, I don't know. I was wondering about that. Like, I was thinking Final Fight might be the better series, but Streets of Rage 2 is the best individual game of all of them.
I would say that, like, in the unbutchered format, Streets of Rage 3, like Bare Knuckle 3.
Yeah, Bare Knuckle 3. I haven't played that yet.
Fantastic.
But that, yeah.
Final Fight 3 is quite good, but Final Fight 2 is kind of generic.
Okay. Was 3 the one with Rolento? Or was that 2?
Actually, Rolento's in the first game.
The first one? Roland?
Yeah, he was cut out. I think a couple of the characters were cut out, though, of the Super... Don't play the Super Nintendo version of Final Fight. It's the worst.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the two franchises?
Between the franchises?
I mean, they're both contemporaries, and they're both kind of copies off of each other. So
yeah, they are quite similar. I guess it's just how you prefer level design and maybe sound design.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Streets of Rage is a blatant copy of the Final Fight formula, but kind of does its own thing as time progresses.
And Streets of Rage 1's sound effects are kind of like, they're pretty weak, but Streets of Rage 2 sound effects are insane.
But the music in Streets of Rage,
the music is unbelievable.
Is way better than Final Fight's.
Streets of Rage 2 might have the best OST on the entire Genesis.
It might have probably my favorite video game soundtrack.
It's at least a contender for best Genesis soundtrack.
Yeah. A lot of people would say it's one of the best of all time.
Yeah, and by the way, just
with like Final Fantasy VI and stuff.
Yeah.
Do know a few similar punch-up games like I think what was that called? Iron Warriors and Battle Circuit.
Yeah, I haven't played those.
Battle Circuit is actually very it's kind of like comedy based. Like you have these sort of it's kind of like the heroes are similar in design, like the Tick hero.
Okay.
Sort of kind of goofy with a goofy villain with a goofy enemies. And I think I don't know what is the actual name of the game, but Iron Warriors was this beat 'em up game where you have these basically fighting with mechs.
Oh, nice.
And one of the selling points was that if you play all the 3 players is playing, then some fights are like basically they drop down at this large frame and all 3 mechs are just combined into one and you can just wreck shit up.
That's excellent. Oh yeah, and just to wrap my thing up, by the way, after beating Streets of Rage 2, I went ahead and did the code to unlock Mania difficulty, because Streets of Rage has easy, normal, hard, and hardest. If you beat the game on a hardest difficulty, or if you do the code, you unlock Mania, which is even harder. And I forgot how you unlock very easy, but it might be the same way. The thing with Streets of Rage, though, is that there's no saving in the game, so if you want to play Mania normally,
you always have to beat it twice, huh?
Yeah, you have to have just beaten hardest and then just immediately play again, so to hell with that, I'm doing the code. Mania is ridiculous. Like, to put things into perspective, on the very first level, I died twice and killed enough enemies to get me enough points to get both of those lives back. Like, that, there's too many enemies, and they're way faster and more aggressive. Now,
you should definitely do that 2-player sometime.
Oh, even so, we're gonna game over, dude. Like, I level selected to level 7 out of 8, and I game overed on Mr. X.
Wow.
And that's with 9 lives.
Wow.
Game's crazy hard. But, yeah, I skipped to level 7 just to show the viewers how hilarious it gets, because level 7 is the big cargo elevator, the obligatory elevator in a beat-em-up, and there's just so much going on the screen. But my favorite part, though, is when you get to the robot bosses. Like, you hear the boss music start, and you hear this clomp of them hopping in from off-screen, so they show up, and you're like, oh, this is what I'm fighting? But on Mania difficulty, you hear too much clomping, and then the robots finally come on screen, and you fight them, and after like 4 or 5 seconds, the other 2 robots show up, and you're like, there's fucking 4 of these things, and like they're jumping everywhere. It's like the most chaotic thing. Like, you don't know where to go.
And all that.
It's absurd. And then when you go to level 8, you know that's the big fight up Mr. X's mansion. And just because the game's messing with you and throwing previous bosses at you, like, one of the first things you fight is one of those robots. But on Mania difficulty, you only have to do 1 at a time, but I think you actually fight 4 again. And it's like, you get the hell out of here. Like, it's way too crazy.
It's kind of reminds me.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, go ahead. That was pretty much it for me.
It's kind of remind me of the various available difficulties in Tyrian, when you can like at the difficulty screen you can actually have, like, you start with like I think 4, and you can actually add like 3 more difficulty levels.
Oh my god.
And there is even one more that you can type in the like the menu screen, which is, I couldn't get past the first 3 enemies.
That's insane. Like
what game is that?
Tyrian.
Tyrian or Tyrian.
Oh yeah.
Like Resonance of Fate kind of did that. Like, when you beat the game, you unlock a new difficulty, and you could do that something ridiculous, like 5 or 6 more times. You like keep unlocking a slightly harder difficulty over and over. And it's like, dude, it was hard enough beating the game on normal difficulty.
Like that's a difficult game to get a hold on too.
Yeah.
It's an unusual game.
That said, in like the N-gauge difficulty entirely, and it basically gives you a specific ship and a specific weapon, and both kind of suck.
That's the Euro shmup, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Epic Mega Games actually, and Eclipse.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've always meant to play that game because it's like a Western shmup that is pretty highly regarded and has like a good story in it, apparently.
The story I don't know. Like, you know, shoot 'em ups and story are not actually walking that hand in hand. It has a story, but it kind of goes in goofy ways sometimes that I wish it.
Yeah, that's kind of why I heard it was good. Like,
Yeah.
it's in found chat logs that you can pick up.
Yeah, there's the data cubes that you can pick up, and if you
Yeah, that's it.
and they are not actually, like, sometimes they're not bits of story or conversation with you, but they are like descriptions of planets, and sometimes they kind of like I think it was mostly inspired by the Galactic Guide of Hitchhikers.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. Well, did you have anything else to add here, Lotus?
No, that was really it. Just Fatal Frame 5 LP hype and Streets of Rage 2 stream. I haven't really been actually playing games almost at all this week, so that's kind of it.
I know what you mean.
Now it's editing crunch time.
Well, go right ahead, Dracologist.
All right. Well, I recently picked up from Steam when it was on sale. I picked up Sexy Brutale.
Yeah, I hear that's a good one.
I keep hearing about that.
It's an interesting little puzzle game. It's kind of reminds me, like, Total Biscuit, who played it, said it reminded him of Ghost Trick. I think it was a DS game.
Oh, I love.
Yeah, Phantom Detective. Yeah, Old Man Stumpy did a Let's Play on that way back when.
And it actually, to me, actually, it reminds me of Neighbors from Hell, if anyone remembers that.
I know the name, but I don't know anything really about the game itself.
Is that kind of like The Haunting starring Poltergeist?
Don't know. No, basic this concept of Neighbors of Hell was that you basically go into the house of this slobby, very grumpy dude, and the grumpy dude is constantly doing, like, the Neighbors of Hell, the eponymous Neighbor of Hell is constantly doing a daily routine. It repeats in a cycle, and your job is to constantly insert various pranks and mischief and hijinks into his cycle, but like replacing the...
Yeah, that's kind of a spiritual successor to Haunting, starring Poltergeist on the Genesis, I think.
And Sexy Brutal is similar, but it's more of like a sort of mystery and drama and such. Like it has a little bit of a jaunt to it. Like basically, what the premise is that I think the character is some sort of reverend father or some sort of similar, and you wake up in this casino, which is the Sexy Brutal, and you are basically faced with an apparition that tells you something went very wrong. The staff of the casino is killing the guests. You have to do at your best to stop these murders before they happen. Now the first thing is that you learn that you can't immediately just stop these events. For example, for the main thing is that you cannot be in the same room with another person because they're sort of this. Everyone is wearing masks, and their masks attack you if you are in the same room. This prevents you direct interactions, but you can also cause various kind of like sort of Rube Goldberg level of interactions if you must to prevent murders. Like in the first, like the tutorial level, you like one of the guys, like what would you call it? The staff members picks up a rifle and shoots the professor. And if you find a blank bullet and put it in the gun before it is picked up, then he basically shoots the blank shot, and before he could clock off the second shot, it gets hit in the head with a chandelier. Like the professor picks up a chandelier and really chuck it at the guy.
This does sound like Ghost Trick.
Yeah, you know what it kind of sounds like to me? it kind of sounds like the reverse of the Hitman games. You know, it's like insanely elaborate to try to kill somebody in Hitman, but it sounds like this is like insanely elaborate to try to save somebody.
The second mechanic in it is time. Like, for example, anytime that the character you have to save dies, the time resets back to the starting point. So you have to manage your time, find the items, and
Yeah, conceptually, like, I guess conceptually, I could see the similarity to Hitman, but like gameplay wise, this really sounds like Ghost Trick. Like, it sounds like just like a puzzle game.
yeah, like I said, it reminds me of Neighbors of Hell, the repeating cycle, the way you must avoid the interaction with every character, and how you have to find items, place them in the right position, etc., etc. Moving on, I think I told Lotus that I playing a lot of Dead Cells lately, and I'm grown quite fond of the game. I just do not understand why everyone calls it Dead Souls-like. Because I think there is one thing in the whole entire game that is similar to the Dark Souls franchise, and that's how the healing potion works. Like, you can have a permanent upgrade through the game that when you upgrade it, you can heal yourself extra, like a given time, and then at a checkpoint you can, well, not checkpoint, but between a level you have these little resting spots, and you can charge up your healing item. But otherwise the game mostly reminds me of like a two-dimensional spectacle fighter. Like, you're attacking and moving way too fast for a Dark Souls game.
Sure.
It's quite fun. Like, again, I think I said to Lotus that I like the combat because in most games critical damage is a random stat. Like, you have 5% chance to deal a critical damage with in a sword strike. Here it's linked to various happenstances, and like, for example, to put an example, there's like a large spear weapon, and it deals critical damage if an enemy is standing next to a wall, or there's a twin dagger weapon, and it has a 3x8 combo, and every third part, the last part of the combo deals the critical damage always.
Neat.
Yeah, I mean that's decent if you can like guarantee criticals at certain points.
Yeah, like for example, there is a sword that deals constant critical damage if you're below 50% health. You can absolutely wreck face with it if you were using it right.
Yeah, I see people play the Souls games that way sometimes, like especially demons. They'll put on the increase defense if health is below like a third, and increase offense if health is below a third, and then just deal damage to themselves until they get into critical health and just murder everything from that point forward.
Anyway, it's nice, it's fast, it's fun, I think the only problem is that being an early access game is like there is like 2 bosses, and after that the game just like, yeah, you finished the game, goodbye.
Yeah.
It basically kills you and this sends you back to the start of the level.
It's like almost shareware.
I've kind of shied off of most early access games unless it's something like I really believe in, because like I don't really want to play it until it's done anyway. Like
I did Slime Rancher, for example. It worked off.
Yeah, I mean, like, if it's a game that, like, has a lot of features to begin with, and then they're just continuously adding features, that's something else. But, like, for instance, I did early access for Black Mesa, and it's just something I really believe in. I really want to play an updated version of the original Half-Life, because it's one of my favorite games. And, you know, it's steadily getting updated, but it's not a complete game. It still has an entire chapter missing. You know, the Zen levels, which is what people consider to be like the worst part of the original Half-Life. So that's kind of why they're spending so much time on it, because it's not they're completely redoing that, and they're designing it and trying to make it fun and good. So like I think that's really awesome.
I wonder if they'll redo the final boss too, because like after
I'm sure they will.
After all the Half-Life stuff you do, then the final boss comes up and they're like, here, this is the final boss, and you're like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, and he's just a big giant baby.
I don't even care. It's a big.
To kill.
Well, I don't even care that it's a big giant baby. It's just like, here's something that we're telling you is the final boss. Like, all right, like nothing really led to this.
Some people are saying that that character is an integral like part of the lore of Half-Life, so they can't really get rid of him.
Sure, yeah. I guess we'll see that come to a head when Half-Life 3 comes out.
Well,
it was one of those big brainiac aliens, just extra large.
Yeah, you know what's kind of funny is the guy who wrote Half-Life and Half-Life 2 like released a treatment of what Half-Life 3 would have been like. So that pretty much just confirms that at least his version will never happen. So that's such a shame. That's a huge blow to me because I love both Half-Life games and the both Portal games and
actually only played the first one. I never played Half-Life 2.
Half-Life 2 is one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, I played the first Half-Life once and I liked it all right. But Half-Life 2 was crazy. Like, that game was amazing.
Especially when it came out.
When those were, like, you know, like, current-gen graphics. Like, oh, damn. Like, nobody was prepared for that.
Half-Life 1, I would still even say, is a game from that era that still holds up, which isn't, like other games of its ilk didn't especially hold up, unless it was, like, System Shock 2, or Deus Ex. But like everything else from that era doesn't really hold up, and like that game is still fun to play. So I don't know, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Next topic.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to share a few words about the game Pyre, which actually I think saw VyseTheBold next to Cuphead.
Oh yeah.
And
I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet.
Yeah, it's a super giant game, if you know those three, and it's a surprisingly move away from the first two games was like third person hack and slash like games with slightly different gun mechanics, and this game is like basically a sport manager game, like you manage and play the sport at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, like the.
Oh yeah, I really like their other games. So like
You're going to enjoy this very much.
I liked Bastion a lot, and I got halfway through Transistor and got distracted, but I definitely want to go back to it.
I remind I'm gonna tell you that this is going to be a very different experience. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what people tell me, and it looks fascinating. I can't wait to play it.
What I like the one part of the game is similar to Banner Saga, like the overworld. You know Banner Saga?
Yeah, vaguely.
I do. I own the first one, but I didn't get a chance to play it. It's basically like a tactical game, right?
It's basically a Viking version of. It's a Viking version of Oregon Trail with the.
Really?
Yes, well, decisions and like it's a bit of Oregon Trail, a bit of Choose Your Adventure, and a bit of tactical combat. And
okay.
Pyre has this sort of overworld Choose Your Adventure moments, and like when you actually play the game part is actually like this sport like game where you try to bring basically a ball into the other people's goal. It's a pyre. Like each team has the eponymous pyre, and you have to bring a celestial orb into it. And it's interesting because every character has its own little quirk. So the game revolves around that. Where you have you pick three characters. They're your who performs this ritual, which is the match, and each character emits an aura and can run, jump, or perform some sort of special movement. And the point is that the other team will try to stop you, as you to try to stop the other team. And basically you can foul other players by throwing your aura at them. Like you can banish them out of the games to basically have a clean shot at the goal. Now, when you pick up the ball, you don't have an aura, so basically you are very much vulnerable, because while you have the aura, your aura around your player, you can basically just touch someone and they vanish.
Gotcha.
And one of the interesting parts are that if someone brings the ball into the goal by walking into it, then that member of the team is banished for until another goal is scored. So you have this sort of balancing act. Like you may use the fastest character to quickly run into the enemy's Pyre, but in the next round you will not be able to have that. So you have to manage without that. It's great. Like I can't describe it quite well enough, but it's great.
Nice.
Nice.
And it has a great soundtrack, and it has great graphics. And what I saw, like, I think maybe like two of your characters are going to be human, and the rest will be various kind of interesting characters and creatures.
Nice.
And finally, to move on to topic, because I'm fairly sure the Vyse want to share his own share of information. I didn't have it, and I didn't own it, but I just saw this new title, which is based on the comics Battle Chasers: Night War.
Yeah, this really fascinates me because I think this was a comic book that I used to read back in the day. That was I think it started on Dark Horse and then moved on to Dreamwave Comics back when those comics were around, and Dreamwave was like really famous for like really great art, but then like kind of ended in like scandal. But Battle Chasers was fascinating. It had fantastic art. It was really neat. I really enjoyed it, and it kind of the aesthetic of it kind of reminds me of the Red Star video game. I don't know if you ever played the Red Star, because that game is fantastic. I mean, their gameplay is not related at all, but I don't know if you ever played the Red Star, but that game is
in
fantastic.
honesty, it kind of reminds me of Torchlight.
Oh yeah, okay, I can see that.
What I heard about it is that it was made by a group called the Cliffhanger, and it was basically the creators just sit together and let's make a comic about the JRPG with Western style graphics and all the various classes all shuffled up a little bit. Like one of the three main characters I've seen was like a swordsman, a golem, and a 9-year-old little girl. And the 9-year-old little girl is the girl with the big massive gauntlets who use like combat magic and stuff. The big golem dude is the healer. And I'm curious, like, ooh, that was. I'm curious that. Wonder which was first, this comic or the Berserk, because the big swordsman.
Berserk definitely. Berserk was around in the 80s.
Yeah.
All right, because one of the swordmen in Battle Chasers looks very much like the Guts.
Yeah, probably inspired by him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the very first Berserk comic was in like 86.
Yeah.
87.
Yeah, Berserk is as old as we are.
Anyone want to add about something about this?
I know that Pyro is playing it, so I'm sure we'll get an update on that for sure. You know, as time goes on. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about it because it was definitely something that caught my eye. But I'm turning over a new leaf where I'm not buying as much as I used to. So I'm looking forward to hearing other people talk about it, and if it's good enough, I'll for sure.
What I saw, it's sort of overworld, dungeon world, and the combat is nice and punchy. I think what I heard that when you are high level, like small combat can be a little bit tedious. Like you can't get out of it quick enough, so it's kind of time wasting. And other things I heard is that it has a few points of difficulty spikes.
Gotcha. Well, we'll hear what he has to say. So, I'll go over my segment here. So, I've been playing mostly the stuff that I've started, which is not unlike is definitely unlike me in previous years. But I've been playing Cuphead, Metroid: Samus Returns, and Far Cry 4. And Cuphead is still phenomenal. I'm still plugging away, only playing a little bit of it at a time because I don't want it to go away. It's kind of like my love affair with Skies of Arcadia and Cowboy Bebop. For the longest time, I loved Cowboy Bebop and Skies of Arcadia so much I didn't dare beat them. Like I always kept and with Cowboy Bebop, I would only watch a little bit, and then I would restart, and then get distracted, and then restart again, so I could start from the beginning. It's just one of those things where I didn't dare move on because I just didn't want to see the end. You know what I mean?
You were trying to savoring to the best.
Oh yeah, and Skies of Arcadia, I must have started and stopped many times. Back in the Dreamcast days, and I of course beat it eventually, and it's of course my namesake here online. But Cuphead is definitely one of those games where I'm like, I want to savor this. Like this is my jam, and I'm not gonna get anything like it. Hopefully it inspires. Since this is getting mainstream success, I hope it inspires more run and gun games to be released, because I absolutely, it's probably one of my favorite genres. I mean, my favorite game of all time is Gunstar Heroes. So I love treasure games and games that are like treasure games. I mean, what's kind of great is that kind of boss rush style's starting to kind of come back. I mean, we have that game that Fury. Fury, yeah, that is
I gotta play
fantastic. That. It's I played the first couple bosses, and I absolutely am in love with it. So I'm savoring that too, but I haven't been seriously playing it since I got involved with Cuphead. But there just should be so more games like this, because they're so much fun. Boss battles have always been my favorite parts of games, and I wish that Mischief Makers was all boss battles, because the boss battles in Mischief Makers are the best part.
Those are freaking sweet.
Way better than the rest of the game. I mean, the rest of the game is very enjoyable. The rest of the game is
still good though, yeah.
Yeah, but the boss battles take the cake. Even the first boss battle is a blast.
Especially the first boss battle.
Yeah, I love that one.
Or well, the second one, Lunar.
The second one's really good too. I mean, they're
Majin's Brawl was great, but friggin' Lunar, man, with Cerberus Alpha, holy shit!
Yeah, where he's chasing after you, and
the boss is it's 4 phases. You're chasing him. No, yeah, he's chasing you. Then you're chasing him. Then his motorcycle turns into a freaking dog and runs away,
leopard
and then he fights you melee style. Then he rides on it while it's rolling, while he tries to crush it. It's so over the top. I love it.
I think I see similar, I think that was another treasure game, not Dynamite Heady, Alien Soldier, I think it was.
See, you know what the funny thing is that out of all the treasure games that people love, they have some dogs, because they were experimental and not everything always worked. But a lot of people seem to love Alien Soldier, and I've never been able to get into it. I don't know what it is about. I think it's the limited. It has limited ammo in it, which always kind of turned me off. I don't know why that turns me off, but it does.
I don't know. Was it? I don't remember. I only see.
It does have limited ammo. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's one of those games, and you need to master the mechanics in order to get more ammo. So it's it's not as fun and freewheeling. It demands a lot of perfection, which I'm into challenging, but perfection is kind of great. Isn't my entire style. But anyway, I will continue with these, and Metroid Samus Returns I'm just kind of plugging away with. It's a good game. It's just not the best. And Far Cry 4 I'm actually starting to enjoy more and more as I play it. It's a huge game, and I'll probably be playing it for a long time because there's a lot of map to uncover. But I found with this game that more so than Far Cry 3, the world is extremely chaotic in it, and a lot of unscripted events happen. To the point where a ton of stuff can be going on. Like, a lot of the wildlife is extremely aggressive, whereas in the third one, they were kind of side missions. You know, you kind of just hunted them, you know, so you could get like new upgrades and things like that from them. But in this one, the exotic animals are very aggressive. Like the rhinos will straight up ruin your day, like if you're near them. It's kind of cool because you can also summon predators and make the situation chaotic. So I've been having fun with that. I like the game a lot. It's starting to grow on me the more and more abilities I have in it, so that's cool. And I'm gonna continue with it. I'm gonna beat it, and I just wanted to do a couple like non-video game things here. I've finally gotten back to doing some reading because I was at a laundromat because my local machines weren't accessible at the time. So I started finishing up the Red Harvest, which I talked about months ago, which was the inspiration for a lot of movies, in particular Akira Kurosawa movies and Fistful of Dollars. So anyway, I'm finishing up that, and I'm gonna report back when I'm finished reading that. But it's basically, as a refresher, it's a classic story about how a private investigator goes into a town and basically pits every element against each other to basically get everybody to kill each other. Like all the different like factions of like the underbelly of the city. Basically are all in kind of like a Cold War, but they're all existing, right? But he stokes the flame and gets everybody to kill each other and rid the town of all the evildoers. It's really fun.
That sounds like a more positive version of Needful Things.
Yeah. He basically goes into well, the funny thing is he's kind of not the best character either. Like he's clearly an alcoholic. After every encounter that makes him remotely upset, he drinks something. And he definitely is very manipulative.
The nitty-gritty character.
Yeah, definitely like a hard-boiled detective, like anti-hero. I mean, what he's doing is for the greater good, but it's
the greater
still like
good.
Yeah, hot fuzz.
Suddenly became the Tau for some reason. Greater good.
Yeah, the greater good. But
love that.
It's great because it's just you see all the things that he's doing is very clever. So I also wanted to talk about real quick here how I'm kind of I really love the comic book author Grant Morrison. He's probably one of the most unique comic book writers out there. He has a very unique storytelling style. It's very abstract. And sometimes it can be kind of perplexing because it's hard to follow what's happening sometimes. Because he'll introduce a character unlike any other comic book character would. Like, you know, in most comics, they introduce a character, you know, by introducing them like in a movie or something. They'll have somebody else say their name, and they'll establish the rules for the world they're in and all that kind of stuff. And he'll just tell the story from like the midpoint, and you'll be like, who are these people and why are they doing this stuff? And then
Yeah.
like you don't figure it out until later. And he does that kind of thing, and a lot of his settings are surreal. So like it's hard to get a grasp on what's going on, and then when it does, it clicks and it's really awesome. Some people love him, some people hate him, but I absolutely love it. And he wrote one of the coolest stretches of Batman a few years ago called Batman R.I.P. and then went into the Final Crisis series and all that stuff. And what I want to do is I kind of want to read his journey through DC Comics. I already have a lot of them, but I kind of like want to check out his story arc with Batman and Superman in particular, and show his progression with those characters specifically, because I found that like a lot of comic book artists kind of take the perspective of, yeah, events happened that other people wrote in between me writing stories for this character, but they haven't really been developing the character the way that I would have liked it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like if you read a singular comic books author's run on character over time, you kind of get a better sense of what they're trying to do with the character from their perspective. So he started writing Batman comics back in the 80s, starting with a really famous series called Batman Arkham Asylum, and then moved all the way through and just kind of finished this series called Multiversity, which I'm looking forward to. So I bought a whole bunch of comics that are filling in the gaps in between the ones that I do have, trade paperbacks, and I'm looking forward to reading his entire journey. I pretty much have everything now, so
nice.
I'm waiting for that. And just real quick, wanted to mention how much fun I've been having with my girlfriend lately. We went on a couple date nights where we went and got chicken kurikatsu, which is one of my favorite Japanese dishes. And we went to a really nice steakhouse last night and just been having a really good time with her. And I kind of just wanted to say that it's pretty cool. We're actually thinking about moving in with each other. We've staked out new apartments for moving in with each other. So I just kind of want to mention that because I kind of I started off, in this podcast looking for somebody and talking about my dating life and things like that, and kind of wanted to let everybody know, what's been going on with it, and it's been really cool.
Nice.
So without further ado, we can move on to questions.
Sure, I think we have time for one. Fakafan asks, how much of an impact does branding have on one's decision-making in everyday life? I don't just mean games, but like brands of products of like food, for example. I know that when Fakafan, travels to Mexico, not recognizing anything made me anxious to buy stuff. So, fair enough, right? If you don't know, like if you haven't heard of any of the companies of anything you're buying, like, do I trust these, or does branding not matter to you, or what?
Branding does matter. I would say that if you're going into unknown territory, you look for something that you like the first thing, the only if you don't have a word of mouth to tell you what's good, your next thing is going by reputation. So branding is really important in that, because if it's a company that you could trust the quality of, then you'll go with that.
Yeah.
You don't want to waste your money. So I think that's very important. Not that I like to, I also like to support the small guy. It's just one of those things where the word of mouth has to get around too that it's good though.
Yeah. I mean, like it's kind of funny because if you go to like a supermarket here, there's a very good chance that the supermarket brand is literally the same thing as a name brand, just
sure,
for fewer dollars, because you're paying partly for the brand as opposed to the product itself. But that's the thing though. If I go to another country, I don't know if it operates with those same rules. And especially, yeah, if I want to go out for food and I just see various restaurants that are just local, not part of a chain or whatever, then yeah, there's no telling. That's why, like, I would imagine a lot of Americans try finding something even if they don't really like it, at least they know. Like, going to France and hitting up a McDonald's or something. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I know McDonald's, like that kind of thing. So I guess there is some comfort and familiarity as well.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is, I'm kind of a liquor nerd in some ways. Liquor, like any alcohol at all, is not really based off of. It is almost always based off of word of mouth and who made it. There is any range of quality with it when it comes to alcohol, and some of it can be downright awful, and completely unpleasant to drink in every single way. So. It's hard to just make a random choice, and it can be expensive too. So
yeah,
well, I'm not gonna stake $40 on something that I just don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
How about you, Dracologist?
Let me think. The thing about brands that I generally just look for a product, not exactly a brand. Like, I generally like to buy these little, like, sort of half a deciliter, not half a deciliter, like 1.5 deciliter of sort of this fruit pulp. It's like basically like water, fruit pulp, and carrots, just blended together with a little bit of sugar added. And it's really good, it's really fun, and I've seen like at least 3 different variations of it, like 3 different brands. And I don't care really what kind of brand it is. I just care that it's like cheap, basically. Like, generally days are something you can buy for 100 maybe 200 Hungarian forints, which is a good price for a little drink. As for like, let me think. I generally like there are certain products I stake out for myself because like they were previously good, generally been very handy to have around or something. Like, for example, there is Interspar sells these like large packets of spaghetti pasta, and I generally like to buy those because it's not just that basically like 2.5 packets worth of spaghetti, but it's also it's more sturdier than the others, and it doesn't boil apart into mush if you actually accidentally overcook it.
Yeah,
it's a little bit sturdier.
So I think with food, you can have a lot of variances with that. You can have like a lot of hoity-toity stuff that's just as good as like the mid-range stuff. You know what I mean? But you could find probably some really bad stuff in the cheap end, like with bread, for instance. Like Wonder Bread is like the worst, and it's really cheap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it falls apart.
But the thing is, isn't Wonder Bread the brand that's like all over the country though? Because like certain states, it's like I could find better bread, but other places that might just be like what you have.
Yeah, maybe.
What I heard that every American bread is kind of sugary. Like, it has a little bit of...
So I hear. Like, it's one of those things where,
for
like...
sliced bread. For sliced bread.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where, like, when we take a bite out of bread, we don't think to ourselves, oh, how sweet. It's more like, like, that's why, like, England has a reputation among Americans for having bland food. Like, it's not bland, though. Like, Americans just overdo it with all their shit they put in it.
To be honest, like, bread-wise, I like proper loaves. Like, a proper loaf with nice... that has been freshly taken off from the oven, and it's nice warm. It has a crunchy outside and a soft inside.
Yeah.
That's what
I tend to like
for.
artisan bread myself personally. I'm not a big fan of like the traditional sliced bread, that you have like cold cuts on or peanut butter sandwiches with. I tend to like more like the bread you're talking about, like that you get from a bakery. And luckily, a lot of local supermarkets have nice bakeries now.
Yeah.
Here in America, at least, so they'll make bread like that and slice it for you and that kind of thing, and it's much higher quality than the packaged bread.
That's the thing. Like when I oh sorry, go ahead.
I don't like these sliced packeted breads because last time I was on a diet, like I eat too much of it, basically I was using it for everyday use. It kind of screwed with my digestion.
Yeah, I mean, like with pre-sliced bread, I usually go for whole wheat, and like it's okay. I mean, it's way the hell better than Wonder Bread, but like I mean, it's okay. Like I mean, with the actual, proper like Vyse was saying, artisan bread, that's kind of the way to go. But I will say that even for sliced bread, rye, I am a sucker for rye.
I love rye.
Rye and corned beef is like that. That's the end. Like you can't do any better.
You're showing your culture. There, Lotus.
Rye and corned beef, man. Like out of my way.
Get out of my way, you old bag.
Oh, the marble rye.
Yeah, exactly.
Pushes over Happy Gilmore's grandma. What an asshole. Yeah. What did he steal from you? My marble rye. What? That was the best.
But I have to say that the kind of branding that annoys me is, for instance, is like bottled water. Like, there is absolutely no difference in the quality of bottled water.
Well,
I don't know what...
I will say this. Now, I don't know if it's the bottle or if it's the water, but not that I'm this connoisseur of freaking bottled water, but, if I ever have to get bottled water, it's usually going to be Poland Springs or Dasani, and for whatever reason, I found that I prefer Dasani, I think.
Well, so there is some logic to that, in that Dasani is actually manufactured taste-wise. I didn't know if you knew this or not, but they add a certain amount of minerals to it in order to make it taste better.
Okay.
So Coke does engineer the taste of that water. And to an extent, like the pH, I guess, I guess most bottled waters do have taste control.
Okay.
In terms of pH and minerals, mineral content. So there is some logic to that.
So is it like 1960s Coke where like the Dasani has a little bit of cocaine in it?
No,
Son
it
of
just
a
has
bitch!
a little bit of salt in it, that kind of thing. But I think like things like aluminum foil, there's no difference. Like absolutely none.
Yeah, it's funny because like
the store brand and Reynolds Wrap.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like I was gonna mention, like of course there would be like multiple brands of aluminum foil because why not? No one's gonna have a monopoly on foil. But I never really considered that there were other brands of aluminum foil. It's foil. It's like grass. Like I don't look for companies that sell grass. It's like there it is. Yeah, it's on the ground. It's all the same.
Well, what I'm trying to say is there are certain products that are so generic that you don't have to worry about the quality of it.
Yeah.
And that is one of them. Bottled water, like I guess if you have a favorite one, go for it. But like,
as far as the quality of like the nutrition value or whatever, it's like it's water. Unless there's zero standards for cleanliness, but.
There is something to be said about branding can be a negative connotation too. So like for instance, I tend to stay away from I want to start staying away from any Nestle Waters product. That's kind of why I brought it up.
It's like an evil corporation.
Oh yeah, like so Nestle Waters actually produces and bottles and distributes most of the water brands that you know. First of all, Nestle Water, which is obvious.
Straight up.
But then Poland Spring, Deer Park.
They do Deer Park?
San Pellegrino and Perrier are all from Nestle Water. And they are a straight up evil corporation. I'm not getting on my liberal high horse, but the guy like the CEO literally publicly said, water is not a right of life.
That's right.
You should have to pay for it, and that, like,
dude, people used to walk to the river to drink. Like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. You don't own it either. You just like
it's a natural resource. It's just like that comic book you mentioned, that one Batman comic where the Joker tried to patent fish, and the guy was like, "You can't patent fish."
It's a ludicrous statement from like a supervillain
level
guy, and you know. And he's getting away with it. You know, they're purchasing like water sources that are basically strangling small towns.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, they're bottling up all these sources, and then like downstream the towns that dependent on these water sources don't have access to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is completely ridiculous.
Wait, and Dracologist, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, if you have no rights to water, like 75% of your body is water, you dipwad.
That is true, yeah. 75% of our planet, 75% of our body, like, we are literally made of this stuff. Like, go fuck yourself.
What I wanted to say about water is that in Hungary, like, buying bottled water is nonsense because the tap water is at the same quality, if not better.
In America, it depends where you live. Like, where I live, like, there's no reason to buy bottled water unless there's like a major power outage or a natural disaster, and like, oh, I hope you've kept your bottled water because the pipes don't work. But usually there's no reason to do it unless you're like out in the middle of nowhere, like you're out traveling and there's no water sources nearby. Like if you're in an outdoor activity all day or something. But there are some places where you really should buy bottled water or a filter for your tap.
Yeah, like in Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, is that so? Go on.
I do want to say that like one like brand that you might want to avoid is Zanussi. I know I'm not supposed to talk about a big company like that, but Italian household objects are generally built like shit. Like they poorly designed. Like water goes into the parts and pools up in parts where rust may occur, so they kind of rot apart. Like we had this Zanussi refrigerator and it was shit. So you might want to buy like Italian cars are cool, but Italian household objects are generally suck.
So that reminds me of this great segment of the IT Crowd. Have you guys ever heard of the IT Crowd?
I've heard of it.
So it's like a sitcom about like, you know, two guys who work in an IT department of a big corporation. It's really funny. It's a British comedy. And the girl that is their boss that haphazardly got the job and knows nothing about IT. But at one point something catches on fire and the guy tries to put it out with a fire extinguisher, and the fire extinguisher itself lights on fire.
Nice.
And he's just like, what's wrong with this? What the hell? And he looks at it and says, "Made in Britain." And he goes, "Oh," and like smiles at it.
That's pretty good.
Like he has like a fondness for how terrible British made items are.
That is funny.
It's just really kind of funny. While everything else is on fire.
But I just love that this is in Britain. And it's just like, oh, of course our country would do it badly. Like, that almost reminds me of Spaceballs. Like, not the location, but the time. Like, out of order. Fuck. Even in the future, nothing works. And it's like, what? In the future?
I heard like, there was a expo, the British Expatriate Expo, where Jim Sterling, Ben Croshaw, and John Bain were in the same room. And they, like, said the following, that British people hate everyone, but not as much they hate themselves.
Yeah, they're very self-deprecating and like.
I mean,
part of their charm.
Remember The Office, like the British The Office? The entire show is just Ricky Gervais making fun of himself for being a piece of shit. It's just like the whole show.
Well, having said that, do you have any final remarks regarding the topic here?
I'm good.
Okay, great. So we'll wrap this up. That's the show for this week. We want to thank our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own on the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. Helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. It also makes me very happy. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as VyseTheBold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, and Twitter.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, or even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, then maybe consider swinging by my Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And Dracologist, do you have anything to plug at the moment?
Not really. You can find me at Skype and Discord, but don't bother, I think. You wouldn't...
You won't want to talk to me anymore.
Don't worry, I won't.
Don't play track 1, but you won't listen to me anyway.
Oh, I said.
It's that Castlevania Symphony of the Night track.
Oh, that! Oh, okay,
yeah.
I didn't get that at first.
Yeah, if you pop Castlevania Symphony of the Night into a CD player and play track 2, it'll say that. You don't play track 1. It could damage your stereo or something because it's playing like data. And he's just like, but you probably won't listen to me anyway.
That's so good.
Alright, well, we'll catch you on Thursday on Reactive.
Until next time, everyone.
Doodly-doo.